Welcome back once again to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're tackling the third and final of the new dungeons added in the most recent patch, Amdapor Keep Hard Mode. As with the other two, or as with Wanderer's Palace, this is a hard mode of an existing dungeon. This hard mode in particular is of the original Amdapor Keep, which alongside Wanderer's Palace was one of the original endgame dungeons. Oh, how far we've come. Now, Amdapor Keep, unlike the other two, I think the dungeon in this one is perhaps my favorite dungeon of the newly added dungeons. I love the Tonberries, though, so it's hard to compare there. But I think the actual dungeon layout in this one I like the most. Oh, I guess I did forget to turn off cutscenes. Whoops! Maybe I'll take care of that during the course of the dungeon. You, of course, start in the same spot that you started in normal mode. And up those stairs, you'll find your first small group of enemies. Unlike in normal mode, when you turned and went to the right, instead this time we're going to the left. Now, this tank wants to do big pulls, but the dungeon actually prevents you from doing pulls that are too big. So with any luck, we'll still get to see a fair amount of the dungeon itself. You'll see this Ochu in the background, or not in the background, the big Ochu sitting there. We grabbed a couple birds, I think they were condors, and drug them over into the Ochu. What the Ochu does is, as you're fighting him, he summons more ads. Little leaflets, I believe they're called. Leaf might, I don't know. Something to the sort. So the longer you have to deal with him, the longer it takes for you to kill him, the more of these ads will spawn. The leaf mites do go down very quickly, though. They're not a proper mob, unlike the condors, which are. The condors are typical birds, nothing you haven't seen before. But so the idea is, once you get hate on the Ochu, you do want to kill it at least as fast as possible, and you need to kill it in order to open up the door, so you can move on. Now here we encounter a somewhat new enemy, the Megalatragus. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've mentioned before that the resolution that I edit at is not full resolution, so it's hard for me to read text on the screen. Though you should be able to. This big guy, though, is one of the new enemies added in this dungeon, and I'm sure he's not a brand new enemy type, but he's certainly something that I'm not especially familiar with. I make him first priority because he's the biggest enemy, but honestly, I don't think he does anything out of the ordinary. And other than that, there's just two wolves here, which we've seen plenty of before. And once those are done, there is a treasure coffer just behind us while everybody else is running on ahead. And while they're running on ahead, you'll get to see a small bit of what's going on in this hallway here, which is these large vine tentacle things that periodically smash the ground. So you've just got to time yourself so you can run under it without getting smacked. I don't know how I didn't get hit by that one. Now, in the open room here, you'll find, similar to the same thing before, you'll find a couple wolves and one of the Megalatragus. One of them, and an Ochu. So I'm AoEing because there's a lot of dudes here, but I would still say prioritize killing the Ochu so you're not overwhelmed with too many of the little ads. Then I'd worry about killing the Megalatragus over there, and then working your way to the condors. I don't know, though. That's my impression. I kill big things. They're intimidating. I don't like them. They scare me. Now, we've looped around just a little bit. Normally, in the original dungeon, you veered to the right, then went down a long hallway where you hit a crook and kind of weaved backwards, taking you into the large open area. That's almost the same thing that we're doing here. Once the Ochu is dead and that path is open, this should take you outside. Once again, into that main room. Let's finish off these last two wolves. Just a little bit of HP left on either one of them. There's another treasure coffer hidden way back here on the side. You didn't see much of this room in normal mode of the dungeon, if only because it was on the first hand covered in vine. Well, the parallel to this one on the opposite side of the room. But it was covered in vines, so you couldn't really move around much, and it was completely skippable, because you could just walk right by and not kill anything in it. Since everybody ran ahead, I'm using Fists of Wind to catch up. But there, in the large opening, in the courtyard, we find the first boss. This is the same courtyard where the large headless soldiers were running about in normal mode. Now you see the boss here, as well as 4 statues. These 4 statues are very important in as much as that they will prevent you from dying. On occasion, one person will get a small marker over their head. He's about to hit them with a pulsing laser. You'll see the laser connect to them, and it'll just eat damage. Boom, boom, boom. The first laser that he shoots will not kill you, but it will hurt you a lot. It'll almost kill you. That's your gimme, so you know that it's dangerous. Every laser after that will kill you. You break that by standing with one of the statues between you and him, so the laser hits the statue and not you. This will, however, hurt the statues, so be sure to not do any unneeded damage to the statues so you have them for this. Also of note, not only can you actually target the statues and destroy them by your own hand if you want to, but the boss can as well. You saw the large directional AoE that he used. That'll actually be focused in on one player, and even if they move, the directional AoE will move to accommodate. That attack will hit them, just don't get in the way. You can block that attack by standing with the statue between you and him. However, it doesn't do that much damage, and it will destroy the statue. So just don't eat it. And from there, we're simply moving back to what we were doing before. You saw the tank actually got hit with the laser in that one, so he ran over to hide behind that statue. Looked like our healer got targeted for the dash. Our bard, I don't have any idea what happened. You'll find that this bard dying is a recurring event in this dungeon. I think it's the bard's first time in this dungeon, but I'm not actually positive. I don't remember if we get the little signal at the end of the dungeon saying that somebody's new, or somebody's seen the map. But there's not a lot more to the boss than that. He's got an AoE that'll drop down, the laser, the dash attack. Same kind of deal. Whittle him down, and sooner or later, the boss will finish. Doing that dash at point blank. The dash will also knock you back, not that it's that big a deal, really. I'm not sure if there's a lot going on for the healer. I don't feel like there's a lot of, like, raid damage and everybody getting hit going on in here. But I don't know, it's hard to tell. For beating him, you of course gain the same thing you've gotten in the other various dungeons. You're rewarded for beating the first boss, and a single piece of item level 100 gear, and a crafting item. Now, unlike normal mode, we're now moving our way around to the right side as opposed to going in the main room in the center. Going around the right side takes you up a viney path. This viney path is actually blocking the path to where you came by in normal mode. However, going up that path takes you in a window and into a very large room. This large room is actually where you fought the final boss in normal mode. Not a lot in the room now. A couple of vultures, Marlboro back there. Oh, not vultures, Wamuras? I don't know. Introduced in Final Fantasy XI, I do believe. Of course, we've got a Morble, so those things are kind of a pain in the butt. We've also got, they'll do all their standard stuff. They've got bad breath and all that fun noise. I don't think the Womoras actually do a lot of note. And then there's the Foxgrove, which is the large plant you see off in the distance. If memory serves, they don't do a lot either. They have a ranged attack, they have their little seed toss thing, but I think, personally, I would say straight up that your first priority should be downing the Morble. Because bad breath is a painful thing. Everything else, though, I don't believe even does anything too much of note. Various trash mobs. Take them out and move on. Of course, leaving the boss chamber now, there's the steps here where the two Dullahans were walking back and forth. Two Dullahans, and of course, somebody would always aggro, no matter how hard you tried. There are two little Fungars here, and a Treant. All of these guys have the regular attacks that you would associate them with. However, once you start beating on the Treant, a number of Womora comps show up. Again, none of these enemies do anything too out of the ordinary, but there's a lot going on here, because there were a lot of dudes there. The Treant, of course, has Acorn Bomb, which is an aimed AoE. He has the giant shaking of his tree, which is a huge AoE around him. On top of that, you've got all the Womora comps running around beating on you, and even more have spawned now, so that's wonderful. And then, of course, the two Fungars, who I do believe have a circular AoE around themselves, as Fungars are wont to do. With everything dead, we can head back into the main room here. You can see a couple small enemies here, but this viney path is brand new and actually crosses over, giving you a shortcut across this, so you don't have to go around the long way like you did in getting there in the first place in normal mode. Now, below us is actually the second arc of normal mode, where you had to go to make your way to the demon wall that was waiting at the end of it. Here, if you look down there, you'll see it's quite barren. In fact, there are large trees and vines and things growing all over the place down there. It's hardly a section of the map, so I saw this in the first time I ran through, and I was honestly wondering where the second or the third arc of this dungeon was going to be. If the second arc was taking us backwards through where the third arc was in the first one. But regardless, we're still fighting the same enemies we've fought before. Take them down as per usual. Treasure coffer sitting right in your path. Easy to grab. And again, a lot of this area has been cut off, so we can move very quickly, maybe not cleanly, but very quickly, over to where we stopped by or where we ported into the third arc in the first place. And of course, there's a Treant blocking the way. The Treant, much like the Ochus originally, has to be killed in order to open the path. There are also plenty of vines around, so do be careful where you're standing. They only seem to hit near the edge of the arena, though, so as long as you're standing in the center, you should be fine. Just as before, in fighting him, the Womora comps show up. He's got his huge AoEs to get away from. It's the same deal in fighting the first one, though. In fact, this time you don't have the Fungars that you had the first time around to deal with as well. These adds are very small, so they go down pretty quickly, and we can go through this and see right there off in the distance the second boss. Now this room here is actually the room where you ported in after beating the second boss in the original version, the Demon Wall. And the fight is against the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman fight starts out simple enough, but can quickly get a little chaotic. His primary mechanic is that he'll be turning invisible and running around, and I'm not entirely sure if he pelts you or not while he's doing this, but I'm pretty sure he does. Yeah, it looks like he is. In order to make him visible again, because you can't hurt him while he's invisible, you have to go kill the light orb. After you kill the light orb, a small circle will appear around it. As far as I can tell, as long as you're standing next to it when it dies, you don't have to be standing around and waiting for that circle to do anything. You can run over right next to where the Boogeyman is, and after a brief moment, you will pulse light, which then knocks him back and makes him visible again. Now, partway through the fight, you may have noticed a couple dead bodies along the floor, a couple sacrifices, and they will come alive partway through the fight, so you now have to deal with them as well as the Boogeyman. The Boogeyman, of course, doing his own various attacks, and he had that very wide conal AoE from before. Everything is still going fairly simply now, but it's about to get a little more complicated. Using Doppelganger, he's split himself into two. And you may wonder, oh, which one is the real one? They're both real. Now, not only is he invisible, you have to kill the luminescence to get the effect put on you, so you can then go make the Boogeyman visible again. So I'm standing next to this one, just going to try to make sure that he gets brought about. There he is. And then, as we saw before, there's also the 3 or so ads in the middle. The Boogeyman is at least visible now, both of them are, but there's still the 3 ads and both of them, all doing various attacks. And I died somehow. I got hit for 2,000-3,000 damage from something. I'm gonna have to skim through this slowly and actually watch what it was, because I do not remember what killed me. Whatever it was killed the bard, too. Or at least if it didn't, he died at about the same time I did. With both DPS down, you'd think like, oh man, this isn't gonna go well, but, a tank can do an amount of damage, and now the healer only has to heal one person, so it's gonna take forever and a half. But they'll get killed, and the healer managed to raise me, so we can get back in. I think this may be the one where the healer actually apologized, so I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was maybe the healer messed something up, and that's why we died, but to be honest, I think I just took enough damage from something to get killed, and I have no idea what. Well, I'm just gonna have to check and make sure. I'll skim back. Y'all are going to tell me in the comments, but I'll just skim back and watch it in slow motion. I'm watching this video. With one of the Boogeyman down, you do have to kill the second one as well. So with him dead now, everything's clear. And there are 2 treasure coffers. Each one has a single item level 100 piece of equipment, as well as a piece of crafting gear. So need or greed as necessary, and be ready to move on into our third leg. Now, our third leg is effectively a gauntlet. Now, I was waiting here for the bard to show up, but I think when the bard used the shortcut, it actually took him into the next room. And in his infinite wisdom, he decided in what looks like an arena, the only clickable object was something he should click. Because we port right in, and he's standing right there half dead, and the enemies are already spawned. Normally, there's a small device in the middle of this arena, and this whole trial doesn't get started until you actually activate that device in the middle, at which point these ads here spawn. So we've missed very little other than that. However, this entire fight is on a timer after you activate it. And we just lost a good 10-odd seconds. 10-odd seconds that were very necessary. Enough DPS and you can get through this with a good 20-30 seconds to spare. However, I think our bard may be lacking a little bit in the DPS category, on top of the fact that we lost a good 10 seconds. I'm just not so sure about this bard, man. Various ads spawn, though, and none of them do anything too out of the ordinary, too mechanically intense. For the most part, they do stuff that you've seen them do any number of times already. So, of course, the gargoyles here have an aimed AoE. The succubus that we saw a moment ago has a conal AoE. Simply don't stand in crap, kill things as you go. So there's the two gargoyles here. We saw the statues come to life, them being these two gargoyles, and there's another statue there in back. So we're going to have to take down that one as well. You can look and see off in the distance. I'm going to attempt to move the camera around so you can see at some point, but off in the distance you can see there are 4 demon walls. Or maybe it's just 3. I think it's 4. 4 demon walls. There may be one directly behind me, there may not. These demon walls, it looks like there is 4, actually, are slowly advancing on you, and they give you a countdown for when they'll eventually touch down in the middle. I was expecting something horrible, like us all getting smooshed, but they don't actually. When they get in the middle, they just start hammering the arena with an AoE that you will not live through. Now, on top of that last guy, there's just a couple slimes left here, and you'd think, oh, that's the end, right? No, the bees! The bees return! The freaking bees! And these bees are what caused us to run out of time. These bees are just the same as they were in normal mode of this dungeon. We managed to kill one, but that's just too much damage. As you can see, the shortcut does take you right back in here, and it starts you off on the phase that you ended on. So both bees are back alive. We have to fight one of the additional bees, but the demon walls are pushed back all the way. So if you are willing to die partway through this fight, the rest of the fight should be fairly easy. So we've got all the time in the world to take down these 2 bees. We call them bees. I don't know why we call them bees. They're gnats. They're gnat-type enemies. Why did we call them bees? I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, they're still bees. They do bee things. They'll do all the same annoying crap they did back in normal mode, including, I believe, they'll paralyze you. But once they're all dead, the demon walls will stop advancing, and these small objects will appear in the center of the arena, which teleports you to the final boss. Now, where the final boss is, as well as the demon wall fight, in relation to the normal mode of this game, I don't know. I think especially the final boss is just on a completely different part of the map than anything in the original dungeon. Yeah, they're both just somewhere else. So say hello to Kefka as we're fighting the final boss of Amdapor Keep hard mode. Kefka here doesn't do a lot of note at the very beginning of the fight, but things are going to start amping up pretty quickly. So you at least have a brief breather at the very beginning where you can simply wail on him before you have to start worrying about other mechanics going on. For one, you see the AoE around him is growing. It has a cast bar, but you're not just beating that cast bar. You have to kill all 3 of these ads before he's done casting. When he's done when you've killed all of the ads, the AoE will stop expanding. So even if you kill them before he finishes casting, you may not have any room left to stand. Now another long cast time here. You can see the tank got hit with a ball of slime, preventing him from moving, so you have to target the slime and destroy it as quickly as possible. I'm told the tank can even attack that slime himself in order to free himself, but everybody should pile on to get that tank out of that AoE as quickly as possible. Just to mix things up, a couple more striped AoEs. We've seen a couple of these, as well as the spinning scythes from the Ash fight back in Hawk Manor hard mode. Just a lot of little things going on to ruin your day. Now, it's not the tank that he's hitting this time, but another small ball of slime, so be sure to free the person who's ensnared by the slime, so you can continue beating on the boss himself and somebody not dying. So he's moving back to the middle of the arena and doing the expanding AoE again. This time there's only the one enemy, but 2 people are caught in slime. So you have to not only free them very quickly, but also kill the ad and hope you have enough room left to stand along the edge of the arena. I kind of like that. It's a very obvious way of telling you, no, you just weren't fast enough. You can see this encroaching upon you. Move faster. One time or another, we built up a full limit gauge. We've got the spinning scythes back on the field. And once again, the AoE shows up. Now, this is a very large ball of slime around the tank. Though it dies quickly enough, the tank cannot actually attack that one himself. The small ones you can. The big one like that, he cannot. What with the whole body being encased in slime and all. More striped AoEs, this time with a checkerboard, just to make things even more complicated. I'm standing directly in that scythe and doing very little to get out of the way of it. You can see the arena pulsing damage every now and then, and I don't think there's any adverse effects that have to do with that. I believe all it is raid-wide damage. So keep the healer on its toes. Limit break him to just about finish him off, and that should do it. Of course, I forgot to turn off cutscenes, so we're going to still have cutscenes. I'm going to have to remember to change that setting after I'm done with this. But your reward for beating the final boss is another single piece of item level 100 equipment, as well as a piece of crafting gear, not to mention the various tomes you gained throughout. That has been Amdapor Keep Hard Mode. Until next time, everyone.